Good day, everyone. I'm Brody Myers, joined today by Payton, Doughtery, and Destinee Adams, organizers of the Juneteenth March on Stillwater in this time of civil unrest. We have them in the studio to talk about their march, some larger political issues going on in today's world, and much more. Ladies, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
I want to direct the first question to Destinee. First, just tell us about the march, the logistics of it, what time it's going on, when and where.
So the march is this Friday, June 19th. It'll be at 6 p.m. So the first thing we'll do is have a march for honoring the Black lives that have been taken by police brutality. We'll do that around the university's campus. After that, we'll go ahead and have an intermission. We'll have artists set up for people to look at Black art. After that, we'll have speakers, and that'll basically be it.
What speakers are lined up for this?
So we do have Maury Turner has agreed to speak. Trish Ransom will be speaking. Destinee and I will be speaking, as well as our co-organizers, Sean Tolbert and Greg Samuel, and several other students and people who we found from different places all over the state.
And could you tell us who those other people are?
I could, but I need to look at a list. Let me think. There's
Miss Black OSU will be there for sure. Kiana Tidwell.
Likely Jaden, the chair of MAC. On the Multicultural Affairs Committee. Who else?
The people that you mentioned before, you two, Trish Ransom, can't remember the person you said before her.
Maury Turner.
Yes, Maury Turner. What are their roles?
Maury Turner is running for the Oklahoma State House in District 88, I believe. And Trish Ransom is the current representative for the Stillwater area in the Oklahoma House.
Okay. Speaking of Oklahoma government, we're going to switch over to that a little bit. The governor, I don't know if you saw, he had his meeting with some community leaders talking about Black Lives Matter, how they can change Oklahoma's policies, the attitude that we have. But we haven't really seen much action beyond him from that. Would you like to see more from the state leadership?
Of course, yeah. I think it starts with state leadership, especially here in Oklahoma. Everything that happened with Chuba Hubbard yesterday and Gundy, we definitely need to see change, not just at the university level, but at the state level. And I think it should start with the state, and universities in the state will follow.
We'll get back to that news in a second, but you teed me up for the state question. About the Juneteenth March, why is it important for you guys to celebrate this Juneteenth holiday? And for the people who don't know, explain what that holiday is. Destinee?
So Juneteenth is the day that the last slaves in Texas were freed from slavery. It happened in 1865, and it's just a really important day because it's a day of freedom. It's a day of freedom for not just African Americans, but the whole country. I think this should be like our Freedom Day. Yeah.
And what's the added level of importance considering the civil unrest we have with the George Floyd death, Rashard Brooks down in Atlanta? Does that add to it?
I think it definitely does add to it. There have been protests almost every day all over the country for the last over 2 weeks at this point. So this is a new kind of momentum that we haven't seen in the Black Lives Matter movement before. There was the time when it sprung up in Ferguson a little more. It sprung up in Tulsa a little more when Terrence Crutcher was killed. It just has kept happening, but the hype always dies down. But this time it seems to be staying alive much longer at least.
Yeah, people are definitely fed up, and we want equity, not equality.
And I think people are learning a lot more about the issue, especially in Oklahoma, which is a very unique state in that we have the second highest incarceration rate in the world, which disproportionately affects African American men. And we have the first highest rate for women in the world. We also have the second deadliest police force in the country in Oklahoma City. That's Oklahoma City PD. They have the second highest rate of police killings, and it's even higher than the national murder rate, one of only 8 police departments to have a rate that high. And in Oklahoma, a Black man is 6 times more likely to get shot by police than he would in Georgia, which is like a surprising fact to some people because Georgia is still in the South,
which is insane.
It's still suffering from like the legacy and institution of slavery. But yet here, Black men are in danger, and that's something that we need to address.
You talked about the deadly police force in Oklahoma City. Black Lives Matter Oklahoma City called for the chief of police in Oklahoma City to resign. Would that have been enough for you guys' satisfaction, or what more change would you like to see?
I don't think that's enough. I don't think it ends with him. This is a bigger problem that's celebrated throughout our state. You see people walking around with Confederate flags. And it just doesn't make any sense. So once we, again, get equity, I think that'll be enough.
And I want to expand on that equity versus equality thing. Break that down for us if you could.
So equity is basically giving the people that, so if we have equality, that's not enough, because white privilege is already at a higher standard than anything that a black man or a black woman receives. But if we have equity, they'll be able to level out on the same fields.
And the thing about systemic racism, which is really what all these protests are about ultimately, is that there's no one person or institution to blame. So like one police chief won't be able to fix it.
It won't be enough.
Like that's just not how it works. And like when we're talking about wanting equity, like that's because you had for 400 plus years an entire race of people in this country were systematically oppressed and reduced to second-class citizenship. And that doesn't just go away over a couple of generations without massive reconstruction that we've never actually had, because we've never been comfortable enough to have the nationwide conversation that we need to have on race to get rid of the prejudices that are built into the foundation of this country.
Yeah. Some do argue on Twitter. I see this a lot. They do say we have equality. You get the same jobs that I get, but we don't have equity because we aren't getting paid the same amount, or other factors that go into that.
What do you think about Twitter and Instagram? People can post things on there all they want, but what more would you call on people our age to do action-wise?
Action-wise, actually we talk about this a lot. Posting is not activism. That's not activism. And I think people get that confused as activism. What I really try to preach is proactive activism and not performative activism, because you can post all day, but you're not really doing anything. Are you signing petitions? Are you donating? Are you showing up to protest? Just really trying to be as active as possible to aid the Black community is what we need.
Would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, the fact is, I do think that the social media aspect of it is very important, and I believe that the movement wouldn't be nearly as big as it is today without social media, especially because all of the viral videos of unarmed Black men being killed is kind of what started this. And so we definitely need social media in this, and posting can help spread awareness, and I think that's really where it starts for everyone. But the fact is, like, a hashtag is never going to save anyone's life, but maybe a lot of action and an entire movement can.
Exactly.
Last question I have for you about the march itself. COVID-19 concerns. We've seen from our mayor, Stillwater's increasing a spike in cases, as are a lot of other communities. What are you guys recommending to the people that are going to be out there at that march to take safety precautions for them and for others?
We are going to definitely encourage social distancing as much as possible. We recommend that everybody bring a mask. We will provide a few masks, but we really want people to bring their own mask, practice social distancing. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to more political issues, we saw yesterday the effectiveness of social media in some news right here in our backyard at Oklahoma State. Chuba Hubbard quote tweeted a picture of Mike Gundy wearing an OAN shirt out at the lake, and that started some fire and brimstone toward Mike Gundy, toward the program. Lots of people standing behind those players calling for activism. What did you make of that yesterday, and what would you like to see done?
I think the whole Chuba situation just shows how much power athletes have on our campus. It was about a 2-hour span in that time, and the university already took action. But we have been fighting this fight for years, years before me. I'm a senior, and I've seen this fight since I was a freshman. Blackface happened the year before I was a freshman. People keep asking the university to say something, help us make change. And they still haven't done anything in 4 years. But over the span of 2 hours, Chuba Hubbard got us attention, and he built momentum.
Anything?
I agree, and I think that it was great what Chuba did.
Absolutely.
I know that he kind of regretted calling out Mike Gundy on Twitter, and I understand that it can cause unnecessary drama sometimes, but I do think that with a platform that great and that influential, it is important to use it for good reasons, and I think that he's definitely doing that, and I commend him for that.
Yeah.
Yesterday, Destinee, you called on the president to join you guys at the march. Will he show up? Who knows? But what would you like to see on the university level to change? Some specifics, some demands.
We will be presenting a list of urgencies that we're urging the university to make change. I would like to see them address the list of demands that we have. And I would like to see Hargis out there. That would really make a change. Even him just addressing us, saying that we see you, could help a lot.
What do you think?
I agree. And the list of urgencies that we worked on, so me and Destinee and the other organizers of this march kind of came together and developed this first draft of the list. And then we sent it to people, posted it, and attached it to a Google form where people could leave their input, because we want to create a well thought out list of changes that we want to see at OSU to have a more inclusive environment for students of color. But we can't speak for everyone. We're just 4 or 5 people.
Yes.
And so we wanted to make sure we get input from as many people as we can. And then we're using that to compile a final list, which we will be reading off at the end of the protest on Friday. Mm-hmm. And then we will be posting it with an opportunity for OSU students and faculty and alumni and staff to sign their names onto it as a show of support. So it's kind of like a petition, except in this case, we want to make sure that really voices from OSU are being drawn to it, because we want the administration to know this isn't just random people. These are your students. This is the Cowboy family, and we want changes that students have been trying to get for decades now.
Mm-hmm. I'll start this one with you and come back to Destinee. The president had his now famous photo op, got those protesters off the street, went over to that church, held up that Bible. What did you make of that? I guess I should ask, is it the right move for him to call out the alleged non-peaceful protesters who are going out and doing the looting? Was the photo op appropriate? What do you think?
So there has been some looting and some non-peaceful protest, but I think it's important to remember that's a very small part of the movement. And just how a lot of people don't want us to judge all cops based on a few cops. You shouldn't judge the whole movement based on a few protesters who wanted to throw bricks through their window. It's just not the point. But I think that the president's photo op was definitely inappropriate, because the protests were completely peaceful that day. And everyone has confirmed that. But they simply wanted to move the protesters so that the president could walk through, take pictures while walking, and then go stand by a church and hold up a Bible for 2 minutes and smile, say absolutely nothing, and then leave. And I think that was inappropriate to just tear gas peaceful people. We don't even use tear gas in war, so why are you tear gassing Americans voicing their First Amendment rights outside of the White House? It's just not appropriate.
Yeah, like she said, it's completely inappropriate. It shouldn't have happened, and for him to hold up a Bible while people are being tear gassed is contradiction. So, yeah.
You mentioned judging cops based on a few bad ones. There are some people in the camp that say, well, yeah, we are judging them, that ACAB, as the term goes, all cops are blank. Are you guys in that camp, or are you in the camp of, well, there are a few bad apples?
I mean, you're not going to find me in the ACAB camp. Yeah, but I think it's a little more complicated than there being a few bad apples, because there are a few people who, not a few, but relatively few people who are responsible for a lot of the violence. But the thing is, the officers around them who fail to hold them accountable are also responsible in a way, because if you witness one of your fellow officers who is sworn to protect and serve the public consistently abusing the public, and usually these officers do have multiple problems. It's never just one violent incident. There's always a past, and they just keep being allowed to have a job anyways. But officers who let that continue and even watch someone sit on someone's neck for 8 minutes until they die, they're a problem too. So it's not just the excessive force, it's the people who are complicit in the excessive force. And of course, there are plenty of cops who aren't, and that's great. And I personally would feel comfortable calling the police if I needed them any day. But I understand that a lot of Black men wouldn't, because they're afraid of being seen as dangerous as soon as police arrive. And that's not something that I would have to deal with, because I don't look threatening. No one thinks I do. But if I were a Black man, I would maybe not call the police all the time.
Yeah. And me being of a darker skin complexion, I am afraid of the police. When I get pulled over, I get scared. And I think that's not okay. I don't know enough about ACAB to really speak on that, if I'm behind them or not. But like she said, not all cops are bad, but it is being complicit in the cops that are bad. So taking a stand against that is important.
Yes or no, should we defund the police?
Oh my goodness. So I think the complicated thing about the defund the police, the calls to do that, is people think it means just get rid of cops. That's not what it means. It means take all of that funding, which most cities use the vast majority of their funding for their police department, especially Oklahoma City, and take that funding and disperse it in a way that actually gets rid of problems and improves public safety. So instead of having police respond to a bunch of calls for people in mental health crises, you should have mental health professionals respond to that. Because sometimes police respond to mental health crises and someone ends up dying, because when people are having a crisis, like, they can do crazy things, but that doesn't mean that they're actually dangerous and they don't actually need to die. And so it includes a lot of things like that, like basically divesting some of the money from police forces and investing them into services to where you don't even need as many police. And like you've seen in San Francisco already, they have agreed to only have their police respond to actual crimes. So in cases where there's like a homeless person sleeping on a bench, or just someone having a mental health crisis, they will send people who are actually equipped to deal with those things, because we can't expect someone who spends 6 months in a police academy to be a social worker and to be a mental health professional, to be a sexual assault victim advocate. There's just too many things. Yeah. It doesn't make sense to have one career have this like great span of control all over these different aspects of society and different issues, when you should have specialized people for different things.
Exactly.
So in a sentence, yes, the police should have less money tomorrow than they do today.
Yes, less money, and it can go towards things to where you don't even need as many police, and you don't need as much policing, because crimes have been reduced by funding things that improve public safety in the long run.
And you were in that camp as well?
Yeah, I agree with everything that she just said.
Forgive me for assuming, but I think it's safe to say that neither of you are going to cast your ballot for President Trump in November. Am I correct to say that? Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders both are on record as saying they do not support defunding the police in any way. And Joe Biden, the presumptive Democratic nominee, is the Democratic Party doing enough? Have they taken enough action? What more would you like to see from them?
I would say they probably have not taken enough action, really, and I think it's because it's very... Well, for at least a long time, it's been very unpopular to take action regarding this issue, because it's just so divisive. And it's also so difficult because, like I said, it's a systemic problem that no one law is going to fix it. No new police chiefs are going to fix it. It's still going to be so difficult to actually change the issues that have been here since like this country was founded. And so, no, I don't think the Democratic Party has done enough, but also I know that it's very difficult to address this. Like, there's not just a law that they can pass to fix it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like she said, it is very unpopular, especially with them running for president. You don't see a lot of presidents doing that, especially... I recommend that everybody watches 13th on Netflix. It really goes into the process of the systemic racism in our country. And in that, you'll see Ronald Reagan and just really establishing this system that is still alive today. So I think they need to take more action for sure.
When, if it does this battle end for you all? Is there a point where you say, well, we finally got to where our goal was, or is this a fight that you see fighting for an unforeseen time? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, I think it shouldn't be a fight. People are just crying out for help. Mm-hmm. And as long as people are crying out for help, I will stand behind them and stand up for them.
Exactly. And there is no, we don't have a list of things that we want to achieve and then we'll stop fighting for racial justice, because things like when a country is founded on racial injustice, it doesn't just go away by not talking about it, or by talking about it for a little bit and then not talking about it. So I don't see a clear end for it, really. And the thing is, we also, the Black Lives Matter movement isn't just about not wanting police violence against Black people. We'd like to have no police violence. I don't think that any unarmed person should be killed, white or Black or anything. It's just not necessary. But the fact is, Black people are disproportionately being killed, which is why this movement is about Black lives,
Yeah, and I think the counter argument with Black Lives Matter is, when does it end? I actually had someone ask me, a shirt did this, so is a shirt, is this the extent of the Black Lives Matter movement? Can anything tick y'all off? And my answer is just, again, when I am able to not be afraid of the police, then I think that'll end. And I don't see that happening anytime soon, so we'll continue to fight for it.
Destinee, Payton, thank you for joining us today. And the Ocala will have coverage of the Juneteenth March this Friday night. For all of our crew, for Destinee and Payton, I'm Brody Myers. Good day.